Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and I was always told I had a voice for radio, so today I am showing you a brand new Raichu card, which is coming out in our upcoming Pokémon trading card game set, Burning Shadows. Now he is an electric Pokemon, which means you're hitting for weakness against things like Mega Rayquaza and Yveltal, and Yveltal should be making a bit of a comeback in the near future. Weakness could be a little bit of a pain because of cards like Lycanroc, which could be good and see a bunch of play, and the attack is, shall we say, a little bit garbage. Lightning, double colourless energy, 130, and you do 30 to yourself. 130 for free energy is alright, but the fact that it's lightning colourless, meaning you can't use a double colourless, and the fact that you do damage to yourself is just not very good, ladies and gentlemen. And as a side note, actually, this Raichu that we're all playing in X and Y, he has free retreat and we really like it. So the new Raichu not having free retreat is a bit of an issue, because free retreat is really good. Having to say goodbye to it is less than ideal. But here we're really playing, or at least looking to play, Raichu because of his ability. Although he does have resistance to metal, and resistance is always good. When you evolve Raichu, your opponent's active Pokemon is paralysed. Automatic paralysis on evolution is really quite nice. Now this might sound a little bit like Salazzle. You evolve up, you get burned and poisoned, but it might sound an awful lot more like Servine. You evolve up, flip a coin, if heads, paralysis. Now Servine has one huge advantage over Raichu, and that's the fact that you can use Forest of Giant Plants, and you can evolve up straight away, and you can use Devolution Spray and then use Forest of Giant Plants to evolve up straight away. But of course, having to flip a coin is really not ideal when you consider that Raichu has automatic paralysis. So I like Raichu, but of course you've got to wait a turn to evolve. Don't forget, of course, that you can still use Devolution Spray here. Let's say you've got two Pikachu on the bench, you can evolve up with Raichu, and then you can devolve, and I suppose you could use it again, but having to wait a turn to re-evolve isn't a huge problem here, because why would you want to use this ability twice per turn? Servine, you might need to flip a coin again if you didn't hit the heads that you wanted, whereas with Raichu, you don't ever need to use it a second time per turn. Although do remember that as it's when you evolve from your hand, you can't use Wally because, well, you can use Wally, but the ability's not going to come in because you're not evolving from your hand. And the theory here is very simple. You don't need to get a one-hit KO with any Pokemon you might be using because you automatically paralyze. You do a bunch of damage, and then the next turn you finish off and get the KO using whatever it might be that you're attacking with. Sounds like an awful lot of fun. You can't get a one-hit KO, and I've said this many times in the past. If you can't get a one-hit KO, get a two-hit KO with Disruption. So you get a two-hit KO here, but you're paralysing your opponent so they can't attack or retreat. Remember, Paralysis just makes them unable to attack or retreat for a turn, and at the end of their turn, Paralysis automatically goes away. The thing is, this card is coming out in Burning Shadows, and there's another card coming out in Burning Shadows, which is going to be very annoying, and that's Acerola. Acerola allows you to pick up one of your Pokemon that's got any damage counters on it, and you also get to pick up any cards attached to it, tools and energy and such. And here's the problem. If you paralyze them, but you don't do any damage, then Acerola can't be used to pick them up and reset the paralysis. The downside here, of course, is that if you paralyze them and don't do any damage, why are you paralyzing them? Because the general theory, like I've said, is you paralyze them, do a bunch of damage, they can't attack or get out the active, and then the next turn, you finish them off. And if you do any damage, your opponent can just use Acerola, get rid of the damage, and of course reset the paralysis. And if you don't do any damage, then they can't use Acerola, but it's not exactly the end of the world because you haven't done any damage. You've just stopped them attacking for a turn. And sure, you can attach another energy and do an evolution or something along those lines, but you're not really doing what you want to be doing here. Now, it's not the end of the world. If you paralyze a stage 2 and they pick it up with Acerola, then they've got to wait to evolve it. Maybe they've used a rare candy, so it's going to be difficult for them to re-evolve in the future. But Acerola is going to be a big pain in the neck for this, because either you don't damage and they don't really need to pick up, or you do damage and they can pick up. Now here, when we talk about automatic paralysis, in the past we've had attacks like this Vanillux and this Excelgor, and we've used these with Vileplume. So maybe you use Raichu with Vileplume. But space is going to be quite tight in Vileplume, and do you really want to be putting a stage 1 in there just to use as a tech for paralysis? I'm not 100% sure you're really going to want to. And that really is where I come down with Raichu. I love automatic paralysis. I think it's awesome, but can you really afford the space in your deck to play this just for the paralysis? Now, if you're playing this Raichu anyway, you can play a total of 4 Raichu. So maybe you play 3 of the X and Y Raichu to do the attacks for a double colourless energy, and you stick 1 of this Raichu in as a tech for the automatic paralysis, so that when you're not one-hit KOing, you can use this Raichu. And then of course you can always play Devolution Spray and switch it into the X and Y Raichu to attack anyway. And over in Japan, and you must remember that Japan are playing a different format X and Y on rather than Primal Clash on, over in Japan they are using Lycanroc with this Raichu. So maybe if you're playing this deck, one of these new Raichu to get the paralysis could be fun. But outside of that, I just worry that you're not going to be able to find the space for it, and the Acerola is going to be way too much of a pain in the neck, so I'm going to be forced to give this Raichu between 2 and 3 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies, that would be barbaric. It could be a fun tech in some decks, but I just think that you're not really going to be able to spend enough room to really have it, and that means it's not going to be a card that you need to have in your binder, so it's not going to be a free Wassie card. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I want to love this Raichu. Now you know the deal, there is a comment section, go nuts, be nice. There are buttons to both like this video and subscribe to this channel. Make sure you use them both, make me happy, I'd appreciate it. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter @TheWassie, and the most important thing as always is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching, my name's Ross and you've been watching PTCG Radio.